Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Li Guanying from the Center for Teaching and Learning Development, National Taiwan University. Today, I'll share with you effective English reading strategies, E-Square. Professor Fu Bizhen is my co-developer of this mini course. First, we will talk about the importance of reading strategies. The second and third parts will be the highlight of the course. We will talk about what the SQ3R strategies are and how to use them to read a textbook and journal article. Then, we will share with you some preliminary findings of the effects of SQ3R on summary writing performance. Finally, we will end with this course with some concluding remarks. By the end of this course, we hope that you will be able to explain what the SQ3R strategies are and will be able to apply these strategies to reading and writing for academic purposes. Besides, as a teaching assistant, you will be able to use SQ3R to facilitate reading and writing for your students. Have you ever wondered why reading strategies are important in higher education? Let me share with you some results of the first-year undergraduate survey carried out by the Office of Academic Affairs at NTU. The survey investigated learning experience and challenges encountered by the first-year students. The participants could name more than one challenge in the survey. As you can see, one of the major challenges to the students is to manage a heavy reading load. At the bottom, reading untranslated books was also deemed difficult by the participants. As for senior undergraduates who were about to graduate, it seems that the challenges they were facing were quite similar to those encountered by the first-year students. Still, managing a heavy reading load and reading untranslated books were both difficult to them. The survey results show that reading was not easy for many students, no matter they were newcomers or were about to graduate. However, we learned how to read when we were kids. Why did reading become a challenge in university? As a university student, you might have noticed that not only the amount but also the depth of reading increases dramatically. Almost every course has regular reading assignments, like reading a textbook chapter every week or a journal article. These academic works were of very high lexical density. Besides, while reading, we need to deal with complex concepts, issues, or phenomena that are new to us. All of this makes reading a demanding challenge for many people, including me. This is why we need some strategies to help us read effectively and efficiently. In the second part of the course, we will talk about the SQ3R strategies. The acronym was coined and developed by Robinson in 1941. It represents 5 reading strategies that have been applied to learning in various disciplines. Here are the 5 strategies. The first one is survey, with a focus on textual structure, including the title, headings, and subheadings. The second strategy is question, by turning headings and subheadings into WH questions. The 3 R's stand for read, recite, and review. They will be explained in detail later. When we read, we usually read word for word and sentence by sentence. As reading goes along, we gradually know what the text we are reading is about. This approach is called bottom-up approach, that is reading from words up. However, as we said earlier, academic articles are complex and often of high lexical density. So it is quite common that we get stuck in jargon or grammar in the process and lose the whole picture of the text we are reading. The survey strategy suggests a different approach. You may try to read from the top down. There are 2 things to focus on when you survey. The first one is to read the title before you start to read in detail. Let's use Cooley and Look with Work as an example. The title of the book is Dissertation Writing in Practice, Turning Ideas into Text. The title gives us 2 pieces of information. One is the scope of the book. It is about writing a dissertation. It's not for writing a term paper or writing a novel. Besides, the subtitle is turning ideas into text. So, The book would be more helpful for people who are actually writing a dissertation than for those who are planning a proposal. The second thing to focus on is the organization of a text. In the case of reading a book or textbook, you can skim the table of contents to get a general understanding of the book in terms of what it covers and in what order. This will better prepare yourself for the detailed reading later on. Usually, a table of contents consists of two things, headings and subheadings. Let's use the publication manual of the American Psychological Association, the 7th edition, as an example. The APA manual has more than 400 pages. The table of contents would be helpful in guiding us through the book. We can tell from the table of contents that the 400 pages can be divided into 12 chapters, starting from a general introduction of scholarly writing and publication principles. Then chapters 2 to 7 focus on how to write an academic paper, including paper elements and format, reporting standards, and all the way to making tables and figures. The third part of the book talks about proper citations and references to avoid plagiarism and give credit to other people's work. The final chapter tells you how to prepare a manuscript and get your work published. The 12 chapter headings give us an overview of the 400-page manual. We will know what we can expect of it, and more importantly, how to break the 400 pages into manageable and meaningful units so that we can locate the information we need easily. In addition to chapter headings, there are also subheadings. In the APA manual, Chapter 1 has 5 subheadings and so does Chapter 2. These subheadings tell us the content of each chapter in detail. As a reader, the title, headings, and subheadings are signposts that we can follow when reading, so that we know where we are going and won't get lost, say in the 400 pages. Next time, when you read, pay attention to the title, headings, and subheadings. They will help prepare yourself for reading the book before you actually do. Also, as a writer, it is important to use these signposts properly from a reader's perspective. Different writers would organize the same contents differently. There is no absolute answer. Organizing your text from a reader's perspective means that you make the logic behind the organization explicit and comprehensible to readers. If the organization makes sense to them, and they won't want to reorder the headings or subheadings, they will feel better prepared for reading the main text. We've spent a bit of time on the first strategy, survey, and the importance of organization because they are the foundation of the second strategy, question. After skimming through the headings and subheadings, we can use the question strategy to turn them into WH questions, such as what, why, and how questions. A what question is usually concerned with definition and characteristics in academic papers. Why questions look for reasons, causal relationship, or factors. The question strategy will change our role in reading from a passive recipient of information to an active reader. We are not waiting for the author to give us information. Instead, we read with a purpose of looking for answers to the WH questions we asked. Let's use the APA manual again as an example. Chapter 1 has 5 subheadings. The first one is types of articles and papers. Based on the keyword types, we can change the subheading into a what question. What are the types of articles and papers in scholarly writing? We can do so with the second subheading based on the keyword standards. What are the ethical, legal, and professional standards in publishing? As for the third, fourth, and fifth subheadings, they all start with a gerund, including ensuring, protecting, and protecting. According to the gerund, we can assume that these sections will talk about methods, including how to ensure the accuracy of scientific findings, how to protect the rights and welfare of research participants and subjects, and how to protect intellectual property rights. In summary, based on the keywords we identify from the subheadings, we can ask 2 what questions and 3 how questions. Now, let's move on to the third strategy, and finally, we are going to read. The survey and question strategies help us to break a huge textbook into manageable units using WH questions. In this case, we read not just to understand the text, we also look for answers to the WH questions we ask. This makes the difference between reading and purposeful reading. However, there is not necessarily a linear progression from the question strategy to the read. Sometimes we need to revise our questions in the reading process. Let's use the subheading from the APA manual again as example, which is protecting the rights and welfare of research participants and subjects. At first, we assumed from the gerund protecting that this section will talk about methods of how to protect participants and subjects. So, we read to answer the how question. However, when we're actually reading this section, as you can see on the screen, it starts with the section 1.18, Rights and Welfare of Research Participants and Subjects, which implied a what question. This section first defined the rights and welfare of participants and subjects, and then it explained how to protect confidentiality. The what question preceded the how, but no worries. It's quite common to revise your questions as reading goes along. In addition, in the reading process, there might be some words or jargon we don't really understand. In this case, try not to look up these words immediately. Delay this for a few more sentences, see if you can guess the meaning in the context. If you read the same words constantly, that means they are important and worth a brief pause to look them up. Now, let's move on to the fourth strategy, recite. That is to check if you can answer individual WH questions. In this stage, you don't need to answer all questions at once. Try to do that question by question. The recite strategy is to help you check your understanding and refresh your memory of what you have read. You may consider the recite strategy as ticking a checkbox. You ask yourself a WH question and see if you can answer it. If that doesn't go well, it's okay. You may go back to the previous stage to read that section again. The recite strategy is a useful self-evaluation tool. It can help you check your understanding and reading progress, and by ticking the checkbox, you will know what you have already understood and what you haven't, so you can focus on areas you need to work on. The last strategy is review. It is to check if you can summarize everything you have read in a logical manner in your own words. The review strategy is quite helpful when you are preparing for an exam. Still, the summarization should be guided by the WH questions you ask. The differences between the recite and the review strategy are that when you recite, you focus on individual sections and the purpose is to check for understanding. When you review, you may consider yourself as the author of the text you just read. You can use your own words to explain the overall structure of the text to a potential reader, and then explain the contents in detail using a question and answer format. SQ3R can be applied to reading a textbook as well as a journal article, both of which are common text types in academic settings. In the previous part, we used the APA manual as example. Now, let's use SQ3R to read a journal article. Here is an article written by Professor Fu Bizhen and colleagues, titled, "I Believe, Therefore I Work Harder. The Significance of Reflect Thinking on Effort-Making in Academic Failure in a Confucian Heritage Cultural Context." We can infer from the title and subtitle that this study might be about the relationship between belief and actions in the face of academic failure, probably in an Asian country. Let's skip the abstract for now and focus on the headings. In general, this article is organized in the typical IMRD format, starting with an introduction, followed by the methods, results, and finally the discussion. The organization of a journal article is more standardized and predictable compared with a book. This would make it easier for us to use the question strategy. Let's use the IMRD format as an example. The introduction tells us what the research topic is, why this study is needed, and what the research questions are and the researcher's hypothesis. The method section is concerned with a how question. How was the study designed to answer the research questions? The results section usually has two parts. The first part is a what question. What are the findings of the study? The second one asks a whether or not question. Whether or not the results support the researcher's hypothesis. Lastly, the discussion is concerned with a what question. What are the similarities and differences between the findings of this study and those reported in prior research? Now, let's move on to the abstract of this article. Abstract is a compulsory part of a journal article. It serves as a preview of a study. It is also the key section based on which your readers will decide if they need to continue to read the main text or to skip it. As we said earlier, the organization of a journal article are relatively predictable and standardized, like the IMRD format we just talked about. So, your readers would expect the abstract will help them answer the WH questions, not fully, but that they can get the gist of each answer easily and quickly. But there won't be headings or subheadings to guide readers through the abstract. You may wonder what and how to survey. There are 6 WH questions we would like to share with you. You may use them to read and write an abstract. Usually, an abstract can be divided into 6 parts. The first part is a general understanding of the research topic. What have researchers known so far about it? In this example, the second part starts with a however. This is to emphasize why this study is needed by identifying a research gap that is worth investigation. The third part is a what question, what the research questions and hypotheses are, followed by the fourth part, explaining how the study was designed to answer the research questions, such as the sample, the tests, and the data analysis method. The fifth part starts with the results indicated that. It tells us what the researchers found out, and whether or not the results support the researcher's hypothesis. There are a what and whether or not question. Lastly, the abstract ends with implications of the study. What are the theoretical implications for researchers in the field and the practical implications for educators? In this part, we would like to share with you some preliminary findings of the effects of SQ3R on summary writing performance. The data was collected in our first E-Square workshop in February 2023. The participants filled out a survey about their use of the SQ3R strategies and completed a summary writing task before and after the workshop. The table shows that the participants' use of the SQ3R strategies improved after the workshop. Using a 6-point Likert scale, their responses changed from 3.2 to 4.6. In the pretest, their responses were between slightly disagree to slightly agree. In the post-test, their responses changed that were between slightly agree to agree. Also, their summary writing performance improved. In general, Around 84% of the participants improved in strategy use as well as summary writing performance. The use of the SQ3R strategies might enhance summary writing. However, the results should be treated with caution because of the limitations of the research design. Congratulations! You are about to complete this course. Before we say goodbye, let's recap what the SQ3R strategies are and how to use them. First, survey. Survey the structure of the text, including the title, headings, and subheadings. Question. Turn the headings and subheadings into WH questions to guide your reading. Read with a purpose of finding out answers to the WH questions you asked. Recite to check your understanding of individual WH questions and answers. Identify what you have understood and areas you need to work on. Finally, review. Imagine yourself as the author of the text you just read. Explain to your readers the organization of the text and the contents in a question and answer format in your own words. Thank you for learning effective English reading strategies with us. We hope that by the end of this course, you will be able to apply SQ3R to reading and writing for academic purposes, and that your students will be able to read strategically, effectively, and efficiently with your support. This is Dr. Li Guanying. Thank you and goodbye.